My next whip might be my biggest flop ever. Hi, what's up? My name is Emma, aka Midsummerknits Dream, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to do another podcast episode. It's been a minute since I did one of these, and I thought we were just due for a new podcast episode. I have one FO to show you guys, and then a couple of works in progress, and then I do have a couple of little life updates, events that I've been to, TV shows I've been watching, just things that I wanted to catch up with you guys on. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So first of all, I wanted to start with my FO, and that also happens to be what I'm wearing at the moment. It is the Heartless top. This is a top that is one of my own designs. This is my second ever attempt at a garment design, and I am planning to put the pattern out if anyone is curious. I do have another video on my channel that is just completely vlogging the process of making this and then showing the finished object and just talking a little bit more in detail about it. So I will link that one in the cards above. But I did want to give this to you guys as a small update on the podcast as well, in case you don't want to watch that video for whatever reason. So I started making this tank top on January 1st. You might remember my last podcast episode, I mentioned it and then sort of showed the back of it, which the back is very plain, so it didn't really show too much of the design. So you guys have seen this one already before, but it was just really exciting to finally finish it. It ended up taking me around 2 months, which was including a lot of going back, frogging, changing counts, trying different things. I think with the process of designing, it is just going to typically take longer than knitting something from a pattern, just because you need to do a lot more experimentation. You need to decide a lot more things about where you want the design to go, and it's just going to usually be a little bit trickier versus just following a pattern. So I'm pretty happy with the amount of time that it's ended up taking me, and I'm insanely happy with how it came out. Again, you can check out the other video to get more details, and also check out my Instagram for more pictures of the finished object. Aside from this FO, I actually have a number of works in progress to show. I usually tend to be a little bit more of a monogamous knitter. I'll usually have one or maybe two works in progress going on at one time, and normally if I have two, it's just because I'm working on something that's a little bit tricky. Maybe it's a design of my own, or maybe it's like a project that I'm just struggling to get fitting properly. And so I got a little frustrated and cast on a new project. Today I actually have 3 works in progress to show you guys, so I do feel a little bit overwhelmed with the number of whips I have, but honestly I'm only really working a lot on one at the moment, and the other 2 I'm kind of frustrated with, so I put them in a corner to think about what they've done. So first of all, I have the Midsummer dancer socks. I have shown these in a couple of other videos at this point, although I'm not sure if I talked about them in my last podcast. I'm not sure if I'd started them at that point. Just to quickly explain what these are, this sock pattern is a nice little lacy spring sort of sock pattern. It also has a ruffle at the top, as you can see. It's just very cute and girly and springy. So I was really excited to make these. I've wanted to have a pair of socks like these for quite a while, just to style with some loafers and maybe with a skirt or a dress, something just very cute and girly. And so I actually started on these as a travel project for when I went to Japan in February. So the problem with these socks when I cast them on for Japan was that I used a size US 2 needle, although the pattern calls for 1.5, just because I didn't have 1.5. So I used a US 2 needle, and I also modified the heel to be a German short row heel, which I later learned is better for narrow heels. So I feel like the sock just looked a little bit too holey, the fabric did not look very tight, and it looks like probably if I actually wore these socks, they would wear out pretty quickly because they just aren't very durable. And in addition to that, because I modified the heel, that heel is better for very narrow feet, and so it led to the lace pattern being very stretched out. But so I wasn't very happy with that attempt, and I decided to cast on again once I got back. This time I'm using US size 1 needles, and I also used the heel flap and gusset heel that the pattern calls for. However, I'm still not completely happy with it because honestly the heel is still a bit stretched out and the lace pattern doesn't look amazing. So I think I am going to modify the heel slightly to have what is called a higher instep, which means that I'm going to make the heel flap a little bit longer and then also make the decreases from the heel take a little bit longer, so do it over more rows. And that will mean that the heel is a bit roomier, so hopefully the lace pattern won't be so stretched out. But that being said, I am just a little bit annoyed with it for right now, and I know that I have to try it over again and make these modifications. So I'm just taking a little bit of a break from it for now. I feel like there's just been too many tries for me with these socks, and I'm just a little bit sick of them at the moment, so they're in timeout. My next whip might be my biggest flop ever. I decided to make a cute little chunky bucket hat. At least that was my vision in my mind. I had seen this TikTok of a girl who made a very chunky bucket hat that was inspired by Well-Loved Knits knit bucket hat pattern. And so I decided to knit this pattern as well. I am not really one who knits with bulky yarn a lot of the time, so honestly, first of all, when I was knitting this, I didn't have the most fun just because I knit in American style, and using this very chunky, like roving style of yarn was pretty difficult for me. I had to really throw it around the needle carefully, so I didn't split the yarn whatsoever. So that made it like very difficult to knit, and that sort of reminded me as to why I don't usually love working with bulky yarn. However, I did have a bit of fun knitting this. I feel like it went by very quickly. It just turned out embarrassingly badly, and so again, this is another one that I put in the timeout corner. So I'm gonna show it to you guys. You have my permission to laugh, I suppose. Here it is. First of all, I want to say it looks insanely lumpy when I'm not wearing it. It looks a little bit better when it's on, but not much, so I will put it on for you guys. Also, just want to say it's not completely finished off. As you can see, I have this bit where I am seaming the brim to like the side of the hat, and I haven't quite finished that because I tried it on and I hated it. So I'll show you guys what it looks like on. Again, if you want to laugh, it's okay. I laughed at it too. But here we are. Honestly, here's the thing. I actually posted about this on my TikTok and my Instagram, and I actually had a few people comment saying that they thought it was cute. And I think it has the possibility to be cute, but it's just a little bit too big for me. I also had a few people comment and say that it looked like an Abraham Lincoln hat or a Willy Wonka hat. I just had so many people making me giggle in my DMs. But I do think this could be redone and made cute, but at the moment I think it's just like too big for my head, and so it looks a little bit ridiculous. I am planning to redo it, and basically the changes I want to make is I want to do this sort of like center part of the hat thinner. The top, like I showed you guys, is very sort of like lumpy on top, so I think I want to decrease a bit faster and make that a bit flatter. And then for the brim, I think I would want to do a shorter brim and just do the entire thing in stockinette stitch. So here is my little Willy Wonka hat, whatever you want to call it. And we're gonna go ahead and take that off and pretend that it doesn't exist. Also, just want to say with this project, I cast this on as like a fun little distraction from my other projects, mainly my socks that I was struggling with. And it just ended up turning out so badly that I again want to put this one in a drawer and pretend it doesn't exist. I do think I am going to redo it, but again, for now, I just needed a break from this one. If you guys have been watching my channel for any significant amount of time, or if you've just seen my other podcast videos, my first ever podcast video almost felt kind of similar to this one in that I had a few different whips and I was feeling kind of overwhelmed with them, and I was also feeling a bit like all of them were a struggle and I was in a knitting slump. So I am scared to even like say that word aloud, but I think that I am definitely in a knitting slump right now, just with the socks and now the bucket hat. Both of those have been giant struggles. The socks I literally have tried redoing 3 times, and then this bucket hat, I just wanted it to be a quick little fun break from the socks, and it was just not that at all. So I feel like I'm re-entering my knitting slump era, and it's a little bit not fun, but this last project so far has been going well, so knock on wood for me that it is going to continue to do well and bring me out of this knitting slump. So my last whip, which is the only one that I'm currently happy with and also the one I'm most excited to show, is the Moby sweater. So I've been talking about casting out this sweater for quite a bit. I have probably included it in a couple of different videos where I was talking about it and how I wanted to make it, and I finally decided to bite the bullet and start on it. I am using the Lily Kate Makes Axis yarn in Penumbra. I won this in Lily Kate's giveaway about a year ago. I've been meaning to make a sweater with it ever since, but I just hadn't gotten around to casting something on yet, and I'm really excited that I am doing it now. I am just obsessed with this pattern. I love the different textures that it has going on. So it has these like plain 4x4 cables. It has this sort of center section that has almost like an argyle looking pattern, but it is sort of like these mock cables. And then it has these really gorgeous panels of textured stitches otherwise. So I am really excited with this. I love this pattern and I'm so excited to see how it comes out. This is also, I think, my first time knitting a sweater that is supposed to be relatively oversized. I think it's supposed to have like 5 inches of positive ease, and I've never really done that before. So I'm excited to have an oversized sweater. This is something that I wish I had more of in my wardrobe, and I wish I had more just like cute oversized sweaters, which I don't really have at the moment. So I think that by knitting this, it really is going to contribute to my wardrobe, and I'm super excited about it. So that is it for the knitting updates that I have for you guys. Once again, this is kind of like a lot of works in progress and just one FO. But I feel like I could tend to go through phases with knitting where I'll have multiple works in progress for a bit, and then I'll have multiple FOs to show. So hopefully, fingers crossed, in my next podcast episode, I'll have a couple of FOs. Although I'm not quite sure that I'll be done with this sweater yet. We'll see. By the way, if you are enjoying this podcast episode, I would really appreciate it if you checked out my channel and gave me a subscribe. I post new content about knitting and fiber arts almost every week. So if you like this video, you will definitely like my other content. I will also give a little plug for watching my other podcast episodes because they're all pretty similar in content to this one, and I think you would enjoy other ones if you were enjoying this one. So thank you so much for your support, and we'll continue with the video. I do have a few other things that I wanted to talk about in this video. First of all, being the fact that I attended opening night of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. First of all, I do want to say, if you're not interested in this, or if you don't want to hear spoilers about the concert, either of those cases, you can totally skip ahead. I am also planning to talk about TV shows and just media I've been consuming lately later in the podcast, so I will give you guys a timestamp as to where you can skip ahead to if you don't want to watch this section. But if you are interested in hearing about my experience going to opening night, then you can stick around for this section. So I decided very last minute that I wanted to go to opening night of Eras Tour. As you guys might know, I do already have tickets for later in her tour, but I'd been seeing so many people going to opening night. A lot of my sort of like online Swiftie friends were going, and I knew it would be sort of the most exciting opportunity to go to one of her concerts because I would actually get to see her perform the set list without knowing it in advance, as in without seeing any spoilers for the set list. By the way, if you think I'm absolutely crazy for this, I am a little bit crazy for it, but Taylor's music is something that I am very passionate about, and I'm really happy to spend my money on experiences like this. So I do not regret doing it whatsoever. But I did decide by the last minute that I was going to go to opening night. So as you guys might have seen with the entire Ticketmaster fiasco, it was very hard to get tickets for Eras Tour, and every single show sold out, a lot of which was sold to fans, but also a lot of which was sold to scalpers who are reselling the tickets for insane prices. So I didn't buy opening night tickets originally, as in back in November when the tickets went up for sale. But at the last minute, SeatGeek released more tickets at face value, and because this was like just a really cool opportunity to get tickets at face value as opposed to just paying insane reseller prices, I decided to hop on it. So I bought the tickets with my friend Arshia. She and I are both giant Swifties, and so she was down to go. And I bought the tickets around like a week and a half before the day of the show, and I also do not live in the city where opening night is. I live in the Lake Tahoe area of California, which if you don't know California very well, it's also close to Reno. And opening night was in Glendale, Arizona, which is close to Phoenix. So I live on the same coast as opening night, but not close enough to the point where it would be kind of like a no-brainer to drive or anything. So Arshia and I ended up booking flights and a hotel, and we also found a friend to stay with for one night. We did all of that within the last like week leading up to the tour date. And honestly, the tickets were not too bad at all. We did buy nosebleed tickets, which ended up being actually sort of like the best nosebleed tickets we could have gotten. We had like the lowest row in the nosebleeds, and they were only $99 at face value, or maybe like $120 to $130 with fees. So I'm not too unhappy with that. We did end up spending a little bit more, mostly on flights, but overall, I'm not really too unhappy with the amount I spent. One thing is that I was able to meet up with a number of my sort of like online Swiftie friends, which I don't think I would have gotten to do very much at my other tour dates, just because most of my friends sort of live scattered across the country and are going to all these different tour dates. And I just think that I would have only met a couple of people if I hadn't gone to opening night. But because opening night is such an exciting attraction, it's the first chance to see the tour and see the set list without having spoilers. A lot of Swifties do end up going to opening night, so I was able to go and meet up with a bunch of my different friends, and that was really exciting. I also, like I mentioned, got to see the set list without spoilers, which was amazing. Just to talk a little bit about the set list without going into too much detail. So she played songs from each of her eras or albums, but she would do this by sort of switching between different albums. So she opened up the concert with her Lover album. So she started by playing Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. It has a line that says, "It's been a long time coming." So that was how she opened the concert, which was just like very perfect. It has been so long coming since she hasn't toured since Reputation in 2018. So she started off with that, and then she went right into Cruel Summer, which is a song that is a total fan favorite and that a lot of people have been waiting to hear live. And once she did like 4 or 5 songs from Lover, she totally switched. She did an outfit change. She switched sort of like the visuals on the screen, and switch to a different era of her music and perform songs from that different album. I thought this was a very brilliant way for her to organize this show. I think going into the show, none of us really knew how she would structure it or how she would organize it. And in my mind, I thought maybe she would sort of organize songs like thematically, or she would kind of just do a variety of different songs. Like she wouldn't necessarily structure it going in order of eras or like separating each of the albums. But I do think that it was a really smart way to organize it, and I love that she did it that way. She also played much more heavily the songs from the albums that she has not yet toured. So everything after Reputation, which would be Lover, Folklore, Evermore, Midnights. Obviously she also has her own versions of Fearless and Red, but she definitely focused on those like brand new albums that she hasn't toured before and played a lot of songs from those, which was really exciting. I am in particular a big fan of both Folklore and Reputation, and she played a good number of songs from both of those, so I was really excited with that. She ended up finishing off with Midnights, her most recent album, and I think that made a lot of sense thematically. Just finishing off with her most recent work, and also finishing off with the song Karma, which is talking about how although her work has been basically stolen from her, she knows that good things will come back around to her, and they totally have. She has been even more successful ever since that happened to her, and I'm so happy for her for that. She also played an incredibly long set list. It was over 3 hours, and it was absolutely insane. She did sort of shorten some songs by taking out the second verse, which I think was really smart. It allowed her to fit in more songs while also keeping like the most important parts of the song. And I think she just did an absolutely brilliant job. I do know some people are upset because she does not have any songs from debut or her self-titled album on the set list, and she only has one song from Speak Now, which was Enchanted. So I know some people are upset over that. But honestly, I know that she had to make some very difficult decisions when it came to the set lists, and I think she did an awesome job. Overall, I'm really, really happy with the number of songs that she played and the number of my favorite songs that she played, and I think she did the best that she could have with the constraints she had. I will stop ranting about Eras Tour soon, but I do also just want to say that the choreography and the quick changes and just the incredible thought that Taylor and her team put into the show. I can't even explain just how blown away I was by it. It was absolutely amazing, just like the show of a lifetime, and if you are a Taylor Swift fan, I hope that you have tickets or you can get tickets before your show date because it was amazing. Moving on a little bit from Taylor Swift, I did want to talk about a couple of the shows that I've been watching. So I have been very, very much into watching multiple shows at once recently because I have been into a few different shows that have been coming out either one episode a week or maybe a couple of episodes a week. So I've been sort of forced to switch between different shows at a time, which honestly I think that binging shows is my personal favorite strategy of watching them. But because I've been trying to watch these shows that are coming out like week by week, there's only so much I can do, and I've been watching like multiple shows at once. So the first show that I watched recently was The Last of Us. I'm sure that almost all of you have heard of it, and probably a lot of you have also watched it or are currently watching it. So spoilers coming ahead, but this is a show on HBO Max that is essentially about a zombie apocalypse. They do have a little bit more of a clever explanation for it, as they talk about fungi sort of evolving to inhabit people's bodies, and basically the fungi's goal is to take over all of the people in the world, and so anyone being sort of inhabited by these fungi essentially acts like a zombie and is trying to sort of chase after and infect other people. But I think this show is very beautifully done. I personally have not played the video game, although I just recently started watching a playthrough of it on YouTube, and I think they did an amazing job of adapting the content. I also think just the story itself from the video game is amazing. It really blows me away that people making video games can put this much thought and effort into the story, because I know there are just like a ton of zombie video games out there that don't have this level of thought and care crafted into the story. So I think they did really an amazing job, both in making the story and the video game and in adapting it to a TV show. It mostly follows the life of Joel, who is this middle-aged man living in this sort of apocalypse world, and he comes across this girl named Ellie who is potentially immune to the infection. So it sort of goes into the story of them trying to travel and find a way for Ellie to hopefully save the world with the fact that she is immune and sort of create a cure. And it's just really beautifully done. The amount of thought and care put in each of the characters and just the relationships that the show explores really makes it special and makes it better than sort of like any other zombie show or movie that you might see. I'm very much a sucker for a show that focuses on these very personal relationships. For example, I feel like Supernatural is a somewhat similar show that I was pretty into. You know, it has this framework of, oh, we're fighting monsters, we're saving the world, but like the true focus of the show is the relationships, the brotherhood. And I think that The Last of Us also does this even better than Supernatural. Might be an unpopular opinion among Supernatural fans, but it is just so well done and I love it. I feel like this podcast episode is probably super long by now, but one more TV show I wanted to mention is Daisy Jones and the Six. So I read Daisy Jones and the Six a little while ago, maybe like 2 years ago at this point, and I really enjoyed it. It was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and I really loved it. I thought the characters were amazing. The narration, which was done through interviews with each of the characters, was pretty interesting. I liked it. I also liked the fact that it was based off of a real life band, which is Fleetwood Mac. And it's basically talking about the story of a band in, I believe, the 70s, and sort of the drama between each of the band members and how that results in the band becoming the biggest band in the world and then eventually breaking up. I have been enjoying this TV show. I also actually recently reread the book because I did want to sort of remember all the details that I'd forgotten in the couple of years since reading the book. And after reading the book, which I actually did sort of midway into watching the TV show, I do think that the TV show has changed a good number of details. It is not, in my mind, like The Last of Us, where it is this beautiful sort of perfect adaptation where you can totally line up each of the scenes and be like, okay, this is perfectly done. I do think that the TV show has changed some things. I think that generally it kept sort of the heart of the book, but there are a few details that I feel like fans were not the most happy with being changed. And since the TV show is still coming out, I can't give like my total review of it yet, but so far I've been enjoying it and I'm excited to see where it goes next. If you have watched either of these TV shows, let me know your thoughts on them, and if not, let me know any TV show recommendations you have. I am always looking for more things to watch while knitting, so I will basically always be watching a TV show at any given point in time, and these are the two that I have been really into recently. That is it for today's podcast episode. I do want to say this podcast episode was probably pretty long, so thank you so much for watching the entire thing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!